interesting is that it's kind of piggybacking off what Reverend Burleson presented this morning.
Yeah.
Just kind of another portion of it in regards to Moses and manna and all of that. We're not really going all the way into that direction, but I just found that pretty interesting. It's very close.
Yeah.
Today's lesson, I entitled it that you are not defeated, you're just depleted. Alrighty. So, can anybody just give me a couple of definitions? Definitions of the word defeated. Anybody?
Meaning that you have lost something, or you lost a battle, or you lost something else.
Like you didn't win, basically.
Yeah, you didn't win.
Yeah. Okay. So I also have here, you were beat, you were won against, you were overthrown, and one other one is conquered.
Yeah.
The other word, depleted. Can somebody give me a synonym for depleted?
You just have no energy.
I can't hear you.
You have no energy. Everything is just taken away from you.
Yes. So I have here exhausted, used up, drained, or empty. So today, as I stated, I'm coming from Exodus chapter 17 as a whole, and for time's sake, and hopefully I can get it all in there, just kind of give points about what this chapter is about. So chapter 17 is basically talking about where Moses, he had already brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. If I had to kind of rewind a little bit and kind of show the parallel to what Reverend Burleson was saying this morning, we kind of go back into, you don't have to go there, but in chapter 16, around verse 8, it got to the point to where they were hungry, and that's when God sent the manna from heaven.
Yeah.
I get a little tickled. I mean, if you're like me, I have this imagination, or I just kind of like picture things a little bit different. By the time we get to chapter 17, of course, Moses brought them out.
Yeah.
In verse 1, going further into verse 2, they start to complain or criticize and say that they're thirsty. So I'm thinking like, well, just have some bread. Now you're hungry, now you're thirsty. All this complaining, but that's a minor thing. But anyway, moving on. It was kind of funny to me. So basically in this light, I want to shine it on mainly Moses, actually. Also in verse 2, again, it talks about the children of Israel complaining about, they're thirsty. Then they're like, did you bring us out here to die? We have nothing. And then it just is kind of crazy, because then it gets to the point where Moses, he's like, Lord, why you coming at me? Did you request from the Lord? Did you ask the Lord? And so, the murmurs is what, starts to come about.
Yeah.
Now, keeping in mind, as we go on, like I was saying, the topic, you're not defeated, you're just depleted. Moving further, in verse 3, that's also where it's mentioned where, they were asking, like, did you bring us out here to die? And needing to ask God to provide. And when I get to this point, something else that came to mind, I was thinking about going back to the Israelites, we know they came from Egypt. We know that they were, mistreated. They were slaves. They were this, that, and the other. But something that I realize is that sometimes, and this is just something else to think about, sometimes our place of imprisonment will put us in a spoiled mentality. You think about it. I feel like in some cases it's unfortunate. Because, at some point I didn't get a chance to go and find it where, it was basically talking about this, how, they were like, we were better off in Egypt. But if you have an opportunity, if you know that God has something greater in store, you gotta let that go. Even the good, that's the temporary satisfaction. in those dark times it's not even compared to what God really has in store for you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, moving on.
I'd like to
Yes, ma'am.
comment on that about what you said. Going back to a movie that I watched a couple of times before, it's called Django. I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody
Yeah.
saw it. When Jamie Foxx let the guys out of unlock the cage that they were in, this truck they were in. When he let them out for them to go,
Yeah.
they just sat there.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know what to do.
Yeah,
You know, they didn't know what
Yeah.
to do because
Yeah,
they were just
yeah.
so used to being in there, they didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and James just went on and took care of what he was going to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it kind of reminded me of these people because God has brought them
Yeah.
this far,
Right.
and they're not satisfied because of that.
Mhm.
Then He gave them bread to eat, and that still wasn't enough. Now they want water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's a way to ask for things, but they were
Right.
accusing Moses.
Yes. Yes.
You
Right.
brought me over, you gave me bread, now we need water, and now we're just gonna die.
Mm.
So yeah, let's turn around and go
Like
back.
that was so extreme, so dramatic. I mean, like what you said, it's a way to ask for things.
Yeah,
You know, because we know they need it. We know we need food and water.
Yeah.
You know, the struggle is real, but
but the
Yeah.
way they were demanding that he do this, and then they insulted him by saying, "You brought us way over here for us to die," as if to say, "Well, we're gonna go back." As we'd rather be treated bad over there than go and see what God has planned for us, because God is not gonna bring you out of something and leave you
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
He's going to bring you to the end of the light so you can see this is why I brought you there.
Mhm.
And I just have one other thing to say about what God does. I went one day to go and get my inspection sticker, and I don't have air in my car, and it was hot. And I had gone in there and waited in the line and waited, and I told the little guy, so I come to get the inspection sticker.
Yeah.
He said, "Okay, well, let me see your insurance." I showed it to him. He says, "Oh, ma'am, your insurance just went out today." I said, "Yeah, but they renewed it. They just haven't sent me the card." So he says, "Ma'am, I talked to my supervisor," and he says, "No, you got to have the card." And I said, "But just pull it up in the computer. It's there, you know." He says, "No, you got to have the card." Well, we went round and round and round. I said, "Okay, all right, fine." He said, "Ma'am, will you come when you get the card?" He says, "We can do it." I was like, "Oh."
Mm-hmm.
So I get to the parking lot and I say, "God, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm here to get these license these inspection sticker, and I gotta get it done, And the Lord said, "Just be patient." And I said, "But I got everything." Here I go, but. So that Sunday, this was on a Friday, that Sunday I told my sister was here and my provider was in the car. I said, "Look, I've got to go get my inspection sticker." And she said, "Okay, well, I'll ride with you to go get it." I go and I get it, and the man looks at my insurance. He runs the car over the thing, turn your light on. He says, "Well, man, let me get out." I said, "Look, I can't get in and get out. It's just too much." He said, "Okay." So he turn your lights on, turn the brakes on, this. And do you not know when I finished, he says, "Ma'am, it's on me. You don't have to pay anything for it."
Wow. God is
So
good.
if I had gotten if I had paid then,
Yeah.
I not only would have lost a blessing, but the man was gonna get a blessing because he
Yes,
said,
of
"Ma'am,
course,
it's on
yeah.
me."
Amen.
See,
Amen.
so I tell my grandchildren, I tell my children all the time, God is not gonna bring you from here to here and leave you.
right.
Go on with the rest of it. Stay there with him because he's going to bring you to the light. And that's the problem that they were having. They just felt Moses had abandoned them. But if you have faith in God, then, you can see it to the end.
Yeah, and I think that's where they had to work on, like Krystl was saying, that sometimes that imprisonment gives us the spoiled, entitled sort of thing going on. But we do have to remember as humans, all that freedom,
Yes.
it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, you coming from in this little corner, and you got everything you need in that little corner. This big, gigantic world, it scares people. But I mean, I'm not making excuses for them because they were wrong about attacking Moses like that. But yeah, it's a scary thing to be out there And I think with our folks here, they knew, I mean, their faith needed to be worked on as well, but knew God was taking them somewhere, but they weren't quite sure where. They weren't quite sure where.
And as we go further, verse 4, it states, and Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, what shall I do unto this people?
Yes.
They be almost ready to stone me. So going back to the fact that, you know, I mean, you
Yes.
ask for something to eat, you ask for, you're thirsty, and then,
Yes.
and I feel like in some cases, we look for other people to blame, you know, and then,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
use excuse of, you know, our emotion, our frustration. And it's like, they figure, well, he's leading us, so don't blame him, you know, take it out on him. But I feel like everybody has a role to play.
Yeah.
Everybody has a part to play, and and I guess I would imagine, not to give excuse, but I would imagine why, you know, the Israelites would kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
Because you've come out of something so dark, and
Yeah.
you're led out, and this is who you're following,
Mhm.
and then when you, it's that, to me, it's when you get anxious. And if you don't start seeing things or getting
Yeah.
the provisions that you believe you need, everybody starts to malfunction. So, all right, so moving forward. Verse 5, and then we're Exodus chapter 17. Verse 5, where we at? And the Lord said unto Moses, go on before the people, and take with thee of the elders of Israel, and thy rod, wherewith thou smotest the river. Take in thine hand and go. Of course, just to kind of give details there, the elders was Aaron and Hur of Israel. As we go forward, what the light I do want to shine is that when God has called you to do something, and you guys may have experienced this, that in some cases it's like you see your goal, and sometimes things, you know, obstacles get in the way, and then you start to either feel like you start second guessing it.
Yeah.
You start to feel like, is it even worth it? Or it may even look like it's not gonna happen. And so what I love about this, as we go forward, and I'll go through the scriptures in just a moment, but as we go forward, what I love about it, to me, when it came to Aaron and Hur, and what Moses ends up having to do is that I see those two as support,
Yeah.
as strong support, and you know, and also recognizing, understanding, respecting the calling that God has, you know, for that individual. And I say that, you know, for yourselves to kind of think like, do you like? And I'm not really asking for answers on this, but do you have those people that support you in that light? Can you pinpoint those people? Sometimes it's not even a whole lot of people that you can lean on to give you that extra strength and encouragement that you need when it's a heavy task. But what's so interesting is that God is not going to give us something that we can't get through. It's just heavy at the moment, you know. So, all right. Any questions? Anybody? No. All right. So, verse 6. It basically talks about how God instructed Moses to strike the rock, and water came forth, and they drank. By this time, going through verse 7, going down to verse 8. Verse 7, and he called the name of the place Massa and Meribah, because of the chiding or the complaining or criticizing of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? Then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim. That's in verse 8. Let's see. Verse 9, and Moses said unto Joshua, choose us out men, and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. Sorry. As another thing, just focusing on the fact that, you know, you're not defeated, you're just depleted. I can imagine how Moses would have felt, you know, with this task of having to lead out the Israelites, and then in that process, like, correct me if I'm wrong, they were headed to the promised land, were they not? So you know where you're going. But it's these obstacles that are coming along the way. And it's just one of those, you need people, or you need to take time at some point to just reevaluate and notice and realize that you're just kind of empty. You're just kind of, you're worn out, you're drained.
Yeah.
You're not defeated. It's not over. You know what I mean? It's not over. And as we go forward, you know, it talks about how what Moses had to do. He went on the hill, and what I thought was so interesting is that where it comes into play with Aaron and her was that, of course, when the battle was going, and Moses had to hold his hands up, and he was starting to get tired. And so Aaron and her, they recognized that. And that's the thing, you need people that recognize that. Because in this case, they gave him first the physical support of, let me give you a seat. He sat down, but his arms were still raised. And then the other was like the side-by-side support. They helped to keep his arms up. And then as it states, going further into verse, I want to say it's verse 11, where it explains that, sorry, where we at? I'll start back with verse 10 actually. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Verse 12, but Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, and the one on one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until going down of the sun. I mean, I'm like, well, it had to be the Lord holding them up. You know? So again, consider that the people that you have in your corner, that when you're presented with this task, that you also are aware of where their support comes from. Because if I picture almost like I guess you could say a family tree, how it branches out. And so the root is coming from somewhere. So what's obviously God is in the midst of all of this. But it makes you wonder what was holding them for them to do it till the day was over. I'm tired just reading this. So, anybody have any questions or comments at this point? Yes, ma'am.
I think in the midst of the issues, the fighting, that the two that held up their arms noticed the difference because they watched his arms drop and they noticed the change. So then the holding up of the arms made the difference.
Right.
And that's the way it is with the Lord. When you cry out to the Master, you hold your hands up. You don't get relaxed when you're calling on the Lord. You know, you have to put forth an effort to acknowledge him. And you will be successful. The war was successful. They won.
Yes. Yes,
Amen.
ma'am. Anybody else?
Amen.
All right. Let's see here. I mean, basically, she summed up the rest of this lesson. So if we move forward, going into verse 13.
Amen.
It says, and Joshua discomfited. I didn't really know what discomfited was. I thought it meant something else, but when I looked up the definition of discomfited, I hope I'm saying that right. Where did I write down my notes?
In my translation, Krystl, it says overcame. Is that what it means? It says 13, so Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword.
Okay, yeah. And so, like, what I was looking up, even just for that word alone, it was like he embarrassed them.
Okay.
He humiliated them. And I'm thinking,
good.
like, and it was, to me, it wasn't so, maybe I think too deep. He could have just said that he killed him. But when you think about it,
It was a
I mean, that's what took place.
Yeah.
But I guess they had this standard and thought that we're bad, we gonna, y'all are just coming out of slavery, y'all are weak, y'all are, but in that, they had God on their side.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you can think of it, Krystl, like, let's say whoever loves the Cowboys, let's say they were having a great season, and then this little team out of the blue came and just beat the living crap out of them. That's like an embarrassment.
Yeah.
Even though, it's a defeat.
Yeah.
But it's a worse defeat than, say,
Like
somebody
pride
else.
is broken, like everything.
Yeah, there you go.
No more bragging rights.
You're
Yes.
uncomfortable when your pride is broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had that right there. So then as we go forward, so I'm going to just carry on at verse 13 and finish it out. Verse 13, again, and Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edges of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book. Now that's amazing. Because it's basically like, y'all need some hard evidence. We don't want them to forget this.
Yeah.
And then he said, rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven.
Wow.
I mean, that's kind of enough said right there. But verse 15, and Moses built an altar and called the name of it Jehovah Nissi. For he said, because the Lord has sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Jehovah Nissi, the Lord is my banner. When I think of a banner, I mean, if you look at those over there, there's different forms of banners. It basically lets you know, like, this is what took place, this is who we represent, and don't you forget, basically. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other perspective on this lesson here?
Well, I like the title, Krystl, about not being defeated, being depleted, and just for us to remember that. I mean, just a little brief example. Well, y'all know I'm a grandmother, and I have the children range from 2 up to 7 now. Well, I keep the little 2-year-old 2 days out of the week, and let me tell y'all something. At the end of some of those days, I mean, and Ray knows, I'm just like this. Because, I mean, she has a lot of energy, which is a blessing. Because I keep telling y'all that baby was, in a medically induced coma for a very long time because she had to have heart surgery. But, I mean, she's a little pistol now. So she's running all over the place, or she wants this, and, I cater to her for right now. Some of that might change. But at the end of the day, of a day, sometimes I'm just depleted. But I'm excited because I'm looking forward to the next day, so I like your title. It's a good title.
Just a couple of more things, just points, is that God's purpose in our lives is for ministry, and it affects and can assist in the outcome of circumstances of other people's lives. So after saying that, it's just going back and reminding you that we need people in our lives that understand and respect what God has called us to do, and they need to be able to support us and to be able to help sustain. I feel like both of those points kind of go hand in hand of just really understanding the importance of what God has called us to do. And it's always a blessing to have those people in your life that can, keep you encouraged. I use the phrase sometimes, the encourager needs encouragement. Some people may not state that they're, having a heavy moment. And if you don't have those people, I encourage you to get those people in your life, and ask God to send them, because sometimes there are some people that present that just want to hear what's going on, and they can't do nothing for you.
Yeah.
But just really praying for those specific people, and then also being open to, if you're that person that needs to support somebody else, and that you're in the position, the right position and spirit that you need to be prayerfully at all times. I know we're human, we all have our moments, but when that time when we're needed, that we're ready. Yeah. So that's my lesson for today.
Amen,
Any
amen.
other-
Wonderful.
Any comments? Anything? Yes, ma'am.
I thought in verse,
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you.
I thought in verse 14,
Mm-hmm.
it said, rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. I thought that was interesting. Because
Yes.
Joshua is going to be taking over
Mm-hmm.
at some point. I thought that was interesting to let him know that the Lord sustained you. I think that's what they're rehearsing and telling and giving remembrance of how they went into battle
Yeah.
and how the Lord sustained even with Moses with the rod of God
Mhm.
and how it always had to be toward God,
Yeah.
toward Him. And but I thought that was interesting that they said that. And then in the next verse it said that even though we thought Amalek was going to be, he was defeated there, but it said that the Lord would be born with him from generation to generation.
Right.
So Joshua would be going into, the next generation. I just thought that was interesting.
Amen.